What's going on, guys? Good evening. We're over here in sunny Sacramento at about almost 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night. My name is August Thompson, and this is Zero and Go. First kickoff of, actually officially ever, to be honest, right?
First one ever?
First one ever.
We're getting it. My name's Mark.
My name's Michael.
And we're the three amigos that are going on this journey together.
It's been about, I think we let this idea sit for about 2 months, just kind of talked about, ever starting a podcast. Always heard about podcasts, talked about listening to a bunch of podcasts. I think universally we all listen to Joe Rogan between the three of us, and we all kind of love it, I think. I think Mark's the one that kind of kicked us off with Joe Rogan, passed it on to Mike.
Big fan one day. I can't forget how I forget how I stumbled across him. I think I was just going through YouTube one day, and he had someone on that I just wanted to see, like an interview about, and ever since then, I just started watching Joe Rogan podcasts, and then, like, one thing led to another, started listening to other podcasts, and then, just the idea of growing more knowledge and, like, learning new things from different experts in different fields, and really gets to broaden your horizon on what you know, what you can learn, broaden your interest, like, what you would want to learn further into, and then you kind of just go down that learning rabbit hole, which is pretty interesting.
Exactly. And then I think, if I understand correctly, Mark, you and Mike both had a podcast you guys started a couple times before this.
We did. We called it the Eminem Show.
We had a podcast where Mark and I would just talk about whatever was on our mind, and we recorded like 4 or 5 episodes, but nothing came to fruition about it. Yeah. And so
it was just a fun thing to just talk about whatever we wanted to do. There was no structure or anything to it, unlike this podcast, which we'll get into in a little bit. But our podcast that we previously had, it was just something to do, something talk, conversate, have a long form conversation. Where in today's society, that's very rare.
So rare.
Yeah, and Mark was like the spark that ignited my podcast interest, and then I think I got you into it, August. And so it's amazing how one person's interest can just funnel through different people and influence their lives. And so now I'm listening to podcasts constantly and listening to YouTube videos and gaining knowledge from there. And YouTube's such a great resource because that's where people go just to learn. I mean, they go there just to learn about ideas and different subjects. And that was the university, but now it seems like it's transforming into YouTube. So YouTube has exponentially grown, and we've been able to see it basically from the bottom up with our generation. So it's something very unique, and now it's like Jordan Peterson says, like a Gutenberg revolution. Now spoken word has as much impact and breadth and depth as books used to have.
What do you mean by a Gutenberg revolution?
So Gutenberg made the printing press.
Oh, yes.
And so that exponentially exploded books, and that's when people started to read books, and that's how it got popular, and that's how we spreaded ideas and wisdom throughout our cultures throughout the years. But now, instead of a Gutenberg like printing press, now we have YouTube, and so it's a whole nother revolution of communication and the spread of communication.
Yeah, I think it's a more efficient way of communicating because you can be doing other things while listening to something. While reading a book, you kind of can only be reading a book. You got to focus, and I feel like it takes more brain power because you're having to read each word on each line of each page versus just listening to something. You can kind of picture it in your head, and you kind of get a mental picture. I guess you get that with reading too, but you can be doing that while you're cooking, while you're, working out, while you're on a commute, while you're driving a car. So many options that it's a more efficient way of communicating.
More efficient, more mobile. With what Mike was talking about, I think about like YouTube University. I think there was an iTunes University at one point. I think it's still there.
Really?
Yeah, there's an iTunes University where you can go on, and they have certain classes like from MIT, Harvard, stuff like this, where you can just pick up and start learning about them. But nobody really goes into that as often.
It just goes by like subject matter or something?
Precisely. You can just pick what you want. But I haven't really seen that ever catch on. It seems like YouTube really has done it on their own way.
But at one point, like going back to Mark, it's easier for us to listen to podcasts because it's more effective and efficient. but it's also has to do with our evolutionary psychology and biology, because we're passing down these stories throughout ages before we were ever writing, and so it's more natural for us to capture things through stories and dramas and talk to each other in conversations. That's how our knowledge has been passed down forever.
And then we started writing way longer.
And now which is funny, now we're going back to the speaking and conversation now. So on that point, and then your question was
not a question. It was just more of a statement, if anything, talking about how the YouTube really is a different unit. It really is an entirely separate enterprise that you could almost call YouTube University. I'm actually surprised they don't have an entire separate platform for it. But I mean, why would they with how successful
I feel like because it's like based on their creators of the content. Because YouTube's not necessarily like producing things themselves. It's just a bunch of people on YouTube producing whatever they're passionate about, whatever they want to talk about. And then in that sense, your content is dictated by your creators that you have on. So if people demand something, it's that like old supply and demand. There's going to be people that are going to be supplying it in essence. So it is like YouTube University, but it's not like, it doesn't have like a structure to it. It's just individual people. You're going here for this type of content, you're going here for this type of content, and then you get, based on the user, what they're looking for, you can specifically look for those things. So it's really like create your own university almost, you know?
Precisely. I would agree. And I think going back to what Mike was saying, how it's our evolution, or it is based upon our evolution that we go back to these conversations. Living in an era where you have so much advertising, so much kind of lack of choice. You know, we see everyone's kind of moving away from cable TV, going to Hulu, going to Netflix, where they get to select what they want to watch. I think that's why we're seeing this rise in podcasts, because you get to select what you want to listen to. You know, if you want to listen to specific things or in a specific genres, especially where podcasts, where this one is, it has kind of like it has a solid drive, it has a direction that it tends to go in, even though we love our rabbit holes and we like to chase Alice down those all the time. That's kind of, I think, what is changing and why podcasts, we're seeing such a rise in podcasts and why there's such a large spike, is because people are sick and tired of being told what they should watch, what they should listen to, and having that freedom of choice is giving everyone exactly what they're asking for.
And when you want it. I think that's the biggest thing. Instead of tuning in at 10 o'clock to see this show on ABC, you get to tune in whenever it's convenient for you, and it's always there just on demand.
All those combined, plus you add that people are distrusting the mainstream media even more and more, so that factors in as well. So all those factors combined really are pushing those YouTube channels up, and people are really listening to those uncensored. And you can tell, like, they don't have a project manager or like an executive yelling in, or like telling them in their ear what to say, what not to say. You can sense how it's natural conversation and it's being uncensored, and people really find that refreshing.
Genuine conversation, right? I agree.
All right, should we dive into what this podcast is all about?
Yeah, I mean, I always love the quote. I think the idea that kind of spurred, or where this kind of spurred from, was the quote from Mark Twain where it says, or he says, I should say, I never let my schooling get in the way of my education, right? And the three of us kind of took that as a call to action to, even though as much as we do learn in school and we are in different subject matters and material, Mark recently a graduate from Sacramento State, we just, we want to learn more. We know that there's so much more out there. So many people are expertise in their field who write these novels, write these books, and maybe we don't get access to them in the classroom. And so we kind of want to bring this knowledge and start spreading it exactly how Mike is saying. It's like we learn through conversation, through genuine conversation. So we just kind of want to bring this out to everyone. And the three of us here are just going to keep diving into various texts and kind of just get to the very root of all of them. All of us have different backgrounds, which I think, let's go ahead and dive into those, yeah?
Yeah. So my name's Mark. I'm the older of the two brothers from me and Michael. Me and Michael are brothers. And August is just one of our good friends that we really wanted to get into podcasting with, because we had great conversations outside of podcasting, and I figured some other people would love hearing those conversations, so it seemed natural that we would do it with August, which I'm happy he's here. And so yeah, I just graduated Sacramento State, so I got a little bit more free time. I was working full-time prior to graduating, so just working full-time now and not going to school full-time and working full-time is going to definitely free up my load to do these fun adventures like what we're doing here now. So I'm super excited. podcasting, as we talked about, is something I've enjoyed over the last couple years and really gotten into. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah.
Mark, what'd you study at Sacramento State?
So my degree, my major was business management, and my minor was RPTA, Recreation, Parks, Tourism Administration. So like a rec side of it. And I kind of chose that side of it. I was going to either do the RPTA as the major and business as the minor, or vice versa. And I chose the vice versa one just because I figured business is kind of more of a marketable degree where it's going to be seen in a higher regard than RPTA. But I love like recreation, outdoorsy things, and so RPTA seemed like a natural minor or major for me, and so that's why I chose those two.
Fantastic.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Michael. As Mark said, I'm his younger brother by a year, and it's going to be interesting having my brother on here and my friend, because now we get to see what the perspective is like with two kids growing up in the same home, like middle class, two-parent family, like the classic American identity there. And so it's going to be interesting having us together and how we see the world, and then August over here, who grew up in a completely different community in SoCal rather than NorCal here, like me and Mark. And so I feel like that's going to really shine some light on some different insights and aspects. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And for myself, I go to Sac State as well, and I've studied in the social sciences my whole time there. I've studied political science, economics, and now I'm finishing up my psychology minor. And so what the social sciences is all about just human relations and human structures and within our society. And so I'm able to look at just different situations, politics and economics, how they interblend and combined, and I'm able to draw some insights and conclusions from that. So it's pretty interesting, and a lot of our books have to do with how we conduct ourselves in society, and is this the right action to be taking. So it's going to be pretty interesting for me, from my standpoint, at least from my background. Another thing I'm looking forward to is we each have different backgrounds. Mark is more business, I'm more the social science, and you're an English major, August, and so we all have these different pathways that we're coming to at this table, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes forward with.
Precisely. Those are little Page brothers. I don't think that they mentioned the last
that's
name.
our last name, the Page. Yeah.
Eminem, the little Page brothers. And then I'm August Thompson. Like Michael mentioned, I'm originally from Southern California, studying English with an emphasis in creative writing, and then doing a minor in marketing over at Sacramento State. All three of us kind of, due to Sacramento and Sacramento State, ran into each other. I met Mike first, and then Mike introduced me to his brother Mark. Realized it's another great mind, beautiful mind.
Oh, stop it! You're making me blush.
We're just truly, it's like you find these people in your lifetime who you come across that have a lot of insight, who are high intellects, and actually just really want to kind of have those genuine conversations. Like we were talking about, those long drawn conversations, and really get to, we always say, digging for the marrow of whatever topic we may be getting on. And if you're not doing that, we think this is a perfect place to go ahead and do that. And so, going off our Mark Twain quote, what we're doing is all of us are bringing a book to the table. Pretty much, I think it's going to take us roughly 2 months to finish a book. And based off of that, we're kind of going to raffle it off. And whoever wins will read the book every week. Every week we'll do a podcast, do about 2 chapters a week, and then discuss the chapters and kind of dive in. And so I'm going to have...
Let's first introduce our books, and then we'll pick the book. How about that?
Yeah.
And also, after we're done discussing the book, we're going to have a section where it's open forum, and whatever comes to mind and whatever we feel like discussing that week, and we'll go ahead and expand on that as well.
So the first part of the episode will be about the book, about the chapters that we read that week or 2 weeks, and then the second half will be open forum, where we get to talk about any subjects that we find interesting or fascinating or just want to plain out talk about. So, Michael, why don't you kick us off? Tell us about your book.
Awesome. So the book I chose is 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. That is written by Jordan Peterson. And he originally wrote on Quora, and Quora is a website where you can post a question and anyone can answer it. And if people like your answers, they can upvote it. And so he answered some guy's question about like what are some good rules for life, and he wrote maybe like 48 in the 40s or 41, and then he distilled those down into 12, and that's what he made this book out of. And he got like, I don't know if I want to say the most upvotes in Quora, but it was definitely up there. And so he just got all these upvotes, and he kept telling these rules and giving these rules out to other people, and they kept coming back to him saying, like, these are fantastic rules, like, can you expand on these, can you explain these to help me further understand them? And so he just kept...
So it's like the people's book. It's what the people wanted.
Yeah, and if you notice Jordan, that's exactly what he does. With everything he does. Well, I'll expand on his writing game that he's going to create next. Is pretty fascinating, but it's sort of like that. So he distilled them down into 12 rules, wrote 12 essays on them. Oh, wait, he distilled them into 24, wrote 24 essays on them, and distilled those down into 12. And so now he has long essays just on 12 rules. And so these 12 rules will help you, I would say, put your life together, or help you think about ways you act in life and how to better your life, basically, and make it more fulfilling and meaningful, and help you straighten you out and help you deal with some rough times in your life, or if you have just any questions about life. He touches on a lot of topics. He touches on like economics, psychology, evolutionary psychology, biology, and mythology. So he takes things from all these different realms and synthesizes them into one essay. And that's very rare nowadays. Now you just kind of see an economist, or you just see just like a businessman, but you don't see them converging on like economy or economics, business, theology, history. And so that's what he does for you. He synthesizes all these broad ideas into one conceptual essay. And so it's basically good for everyone in any background. I don't see anyone who couldn't read this book. It's so versatile that everyone will find something, and probably a lot more than just one thing, very meaningful that they'll take away and they'll hold for the rest of their life. It seems like, and it's the #1 bestseller on Amazon right now.
Wow.
And so he just jumped up there extremely fast, and so
sounds like
everyone who's read it said it's fantastic, and I'm just excited to read it and dive into it.
Can you touch on a little bit of the academic that Jordan Peterson is?
So his background is, he actually started with a government major as myself, and then throughout his political science teachings, people kind of came down to our societal problems can really fix by the economy, and it all comes down to economics and the power of money, basically. And him and I, well, he came to the conclusion first that it's more than just money and power. There's a lot of psychological aspects to humans that really force our decisions and how we make decisions. And that's what I came down to. So we both went to the government major and realized these weren't deep enough answers to solve the questions we were asking. And so then he went and studied psychology, and he became a clinical psychologist and a professor. And this guy, Jordan Peterson, is wicked smart. He taught at Harvard, and now he's teaching at the University of Toronto, and University of Toronto is one of the best psychology programs in the world. And so this guy is just an absolute monster, and he just shreds psychology and helps people understand like their behavior and how they affect other people and what they're doing with their lives.
Yeah, it's so funny when you first introduced me to him. I could only kind of find him on YouTube channels, just on his own. And it's kind of funny because he's really cheesy in the beginning. He's got the camera right up in his face, and as he progresses, he puts it in the back of the class, and someone's following him around. And now I see him in these huge auditorium halls, speaking in front of thousands of people. So I mean, his progression is phenomenal right now. He really is, and I refer to him. I think I told you, Mike, not that long ago. He really is kind of like the modern-day Einstein in the world of psychology right now. And if you are not listening to him and reading him, then you are missing out on a genuine, true human being that is very cutting edge in a society and very unfiltered in a society that tends to be very filtered, that tends to kind of pull away from those questions, rather than he's so deep in every single one of those.
Yeah, and that's the thing you notice about Jordan. He delves into the questions that people want to, and he goes towards the hardest questions and figures answers out to those hardest questions. And so I don't think as like an average Joe, you're going to be able to find those answers. So you're going to need someone like him to facilitate those answers and help you, like, guide you through those answers and walk you through those answers. And that's when you have like that light bulb moment where where he has that aha moment. Like, I've been kind of seeing this throughout my whole life, but I wasn't able to articulate it properly. And then that's what he does for you. And so
I think that's the biggest thing, is when you can really connect to what he's saying through your own experiences. Like you said, like, you felt like you've always known that, and it, like, makes sense because the light bulb finally goes on, but you really didn't know how to articulate it until someone did it for you.
Yeah, and he's forthright about everything he does, too. He has incredible honesty and sincerity, and he puts all his lectures on YouTube. And so if you have any questions about his material or you want to learn more about it, you just go to YouTube, because everything's on there. That he's being recorded in lectures for like years now, and people who are opponents of him or dislike him try to go back through his lectures and find something to, like, you know, find some, like, something he said wrong or he misstepped in this certain situation, but they can't find anything, and it really pisses them off, and it's so funny. Like, this guy's been so good for so long, and he hasn't misstepped or said anything, like, outrageous that you can't call him a racist. Well, you can call him a racist, but you have no proof of it. There's no evidence whatsoever. You can call him a Nazi. No evidence of that whatsoever. And so, like, the left has been, like, really hounding him, but they can't find anything that's pissing him off. And the more times they protest against him, the more followers he gets, because he just puts that on YouTube, and people realize that these left, like, Antifa people just have this ridiculous ideology, and his YouTube stats go up, and his Patreon account goes up. So it's funny. The left is just really hating him.
The Kathy Newmans of the world.
Yeah, the Kathy Newmans. If you haven't seen that interview, check it out. Kathy Newman, Jordan Peterson. Man, that was pure class, pure wisdom, and that's something you don't see every day.
Worth the watch.
All right, that sounds like a good book.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited to read that one.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to say about this book. I've been stirring about this idea in my head for a couple weeks now. I don't want to say it's like the modern day version of a Bible, but it's something sort of similar where it helps you learn how to act within the world, and it's so, I don't want to say like revolutionary. I don't want to put up to that, but it's something that will help guide people's lives and lead better lives, like a biblical text would, or some other religious text would. But I think it's getting up there, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, but don't you think like a lot of books kind of do that?
Yeah, but they don't do it with such an impact and such a breadth and depth of this book covers.
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, we'll see. Who knows where it's going to take us.
Okay, so I'll dive into my book then. So my book that I chose was Jab, 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 Right Hook, How to Tell Your Story in a Noisy Social World. And it's by the man, the myth, the legend, Gary Vaynerchuk. And he is a media mogul in New York City. And he basically started from nothing. He was, he like started in his dad's old liquor store in New York, and he basically built it up from just a small little liquor store to a multi-million-dollar company through social media, through the internet, through like hard work and drive and a million other factors. But anyways, so I basically chose Gary Vee because I like what he's doing in the social media world, in the sense that he puts out content literally every day about his life, documenting his life, and like showing how he goes about the day. And in that sense, it's a really genuine, really honest type of new age entrepreneur, where he is going after so many different endeavors and tackling so many different fields. And now he owns his own media company called VaynerMedia, and it's worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, soon to be billions, and it's crazy where he's going, and his trajectory that he's on, and his like true sincerity and honesty, kind of like Jordan Peterson. I guess that's kind of what gravitated me towards him, was he didn't, like, a lot of people like to phrase him as a motivational speaker, but he actually despised that like title, and he hates that title. He just likes to call things how it is, and he does like big lectures and big corporate lectures and big like TED Talks and all types of things where he just talks about a subject, and his favorite part is to just do Q&A with people. He likes connecting with people. He likes having one person's like actual issue that's happening, very concrete, and then them telling him his story and he applying his knowledge and previous experiences to that story to help that one individual person, and other people can like pull from those stories and be like, oh, this relates to me in this relates to me in that. And so in this aspect that Gary is really thriving in New York with his insane media company, where he has locations in LA, New York, London. There's a couple other places. It's like a worldwide media company at this point. And so I chose his book just because I was really gravitated towards Gary Vee and his YouTube channel, and that's kind of what sparked my interest. So I was like, oh, I might as well read a book about this guy since I listen to him on YouTube so often anyways. And just get a different perspective, maybe a deeper perspective on a certain topic. And so that's why I chose this book. And Jab, 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 Right Hook is about how companies and individuals tell their story in this crazy social world that we currently live in, with the Instagrams, the Snapchats, the Facebooks, the Tumblr, the Twitters. Like, there's a million different social medias now, and he kind of highlights in best practices of ways to go about these social medias from a personal aspect, from a business aspect, and a lot of it has to do with like the psychology of individuals and how they like perceive social media and how they use social media and the things that are going to appeal to consumers and businesses and things of that nature. So I just found it a fascinating book, and I'm excited to read it.
And he has no formal education, or does he?
No, he doesn't. I believe he might have dropped out of high school, or he just finished. No, I think he just finished high school, but like he was a terrible student. He got like C's and D's, and like because that's just not what he cared about. You know, it's like I can learn something on YouTube that I'm passionate about, and because I really want to learn it. But when you put me in a classroom setting about some scientific thing, geometry, where I don't care about the angles of a triangle, you know? Like, everyone kind of learns in their own aspect. And Gary Vee's definitely a testament to that. And I guess he doesn't have any, like, further education in the sense that he didn't go to grad school or anything. Yeah. But clearly it's worked out for him.
So that's cool. And then I think VaynerMedia, they're coming out with, like, the V voice. Have you heard about that?
I haven't.
So VaynerMedia is getting on this trend how they're realizing people like responding and talking to their devices now. Yeah. And so they sat down with I think about 20 people in their office and started recording voices on the V voice. Right. So it's always interesting to see how VaynerMedia is always very cutting edge. They're always very out of the box, which makes me really excited to read this type of a novel, especially from someone who seems very just self-started compared to someone like Jordan Peterson, who is very, very well educated and considered a very, very true academic. I think is very awesome.
Yeah. Definitely kind of different worlds in that aspect.
Very different world, but they all ended up being extremely successful because they really found that passion, that meaning in which they were doing. And so it goes to show you that you don't always need to go to college to be successful, and especially you just have to follow that passion and continue to foster that passion.
Yeah, especially in today's age.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't get why sometimes you'll hear professors like, oh, yeah, you have to go to college if you want to be successful. There's like those professors out there. And if you went to college, I think you probably had at least one or two of those. And I just thought they were always completely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Like, you don't need to go to college. I mean, it depends what you want to do with your life, really. Like, sometimes you're going to have to go to college to get some, like, technical training or technical degree. But a lot of jobs out there and stuff, you can just learn going out there.
Yeah. And you can just learn online.
Yeah, now we have online.
The amounts that you can learn online is literally endless.
Yeah, and once like YouTube and all those online universities figure out the accreditation portion.
Exactly.
Sorry, man, I don't see like the universities like doing that well. Because I'm going to learn from the best psychology professor, or I can learn from one at Sac State. I'm always going to choose the best one. It's like learning from the best surgeon. You're going to want to learn from the best surgeon, not some mediocre surgeon.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say it'll be interesting to see, because I think you're right, except certain fields like surgeons and surgery and nurses.
I think that would become hyper specialized, and like you'll just go to one building, but most of your classes would be online. But then all the physical stuff, you just go to one building, and it's going to be way cheaper, less administration overhead, which I love. I think the administration at Sac State and all the CSUs have gone way too far, and they've taken a lot of the professor's salary, and so that's my opinion, at least from being in the academic world in 2017 or 2018.
What were you going to say, Mark?
I don't know. I lost it. Yeah.
All right. So I'll introduce my book. My book is called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. He's another academic, not nearly as, severe as Jordan Peterson is.
Severe?
Severe, I don't know. Probably
what? He's a severe academic. I've never heard that before. I might have to use that. I might have to steal that. That's pretty funny.
Here's a severe case of academia.
Yeah.
Well, something, I don't know, I think it's on someone who started out in, I love his progression though into government and then psychology, and he just continually is breaking bounds in psychology. But Duhigg, was a native of New Mexico.
So he's another psychologist?
He's not a psychologist. He actually studied history at Yale. Uh-huh. I think he did so well at Yale and probably so good in his interview that he went on to get an MBA at Harvard Business School. Right, so this guy's got a degree from Yale and a degree from Harvard.
What a jump. Those seem like very different fields, and you would need to know at least some basic accounting and finance, so I don't know how he did that. That seems pretty crazy.
Got to be some kind of genius, right?
Yeah.
So then he goes on and gets his MBA, and then he goes and he's an American journalist for the New York Times. So he gets an MBA and turns into a journalist. And so he was kind of bothered by this idea of productivity. How are people so productive? And he was saying how he was trying to write this book at night. He was getting hammered by all these emails, and he was a story kind of like a story chaser, I guess they call him, where he'd be chasing around stories, trying to get interviews and all this stuff. And so he's having such a hard time trying to manage his writing for the book, manage his writing for the journal, and being a father, and being like a husband to all these people. And then he came upon an individual by the name of Atul Gawande. And this guy, I've never heard of him, but until reading about Charles Duhigg, this guy is phenomenal, right? He's a 46-year-old staff writer at a prestigious magazine. He's a well-renowned surgeon at the nation's top hospital, and he's an associate professor at Harvard, and an advisor to the World Health Organization, and a founder of a non-profit that sent surgical supplies to medical, undeserved parts of the world. He's written 3 books, all bestsellers, is married with 3 children. And in 2006, he was awarded a MacArthur Genius Grant, which he gave $500,000 of it to charity, right? So this guy, yeah, exactly.
How many hours does he have in his day?
Right? So Duhigg is like, he emailed this guy and he's trying to figure out, how is this guy doing this? How is he this productive? How does he able to like operate on all these fields at such a high level?
I think he won at life, dude.
Oh, 100%.
Give up.
Right? And so
game's over.
Duhigg had like a hard look in the mirror. He's like, how is this guy doing this? And I'm struggling to even maintain my life how it is. He's like, I haven't taken a day off in 9 months, and apparently this guy takes days off every now and then because he needs it, right? And so Duhigg kind of like started this conversation with this guy, Atul, and Atul was very, very responsive and said, hey, why don't you give me a call back in about a couple months and we'll just start diving into this. And so through the use of a lot of psychology research, diving more into the field that Mike's with, through a lot of psychology, through a bunch of research with a bunch of essayists, professors, guys like Atul, he developed this book called The Power of Habit, which really dives into how much of our daily, how much time we spend of our day in habit. I think I was watching a video just before this about, I think it's like 45% of our day we spend in habit, and how our brain activity kind of decreases as if we're almost asleep. So it's kind of like a call to action to realize your habits, realize which ones are incorrect, which ones are kind of detrimental to you, and become more awake and more avid within your own mental state. The reason I chose this book is because I'm always curious about how productive I can be. I always love living by the statement, be all you can be, do all you can do. And so I think this book will help me dive into that question and that drive a little more, that motto that I choose to live by, and see really how maybe we can all become a tool, and donate $500,000 to charity at one point in our lives. Who knows, really?
It's a good goal.
But I think that book will really serve, especially coming into our early 20s. I don't think we set our age, but I'm recently just turned 22, and so coming into your early 20s, coming into a career, I think it's good to practice these habits. You don't get to really learn these habits unless you had a father, maybe typically was in the military or something along those lines, who teaches you these. So if you can obtain these habits early on in your life and carry them on throughout your career, I mean, your trajectory is huge, right?
It'll just have an exponential effect as you go forward.
And it seems like it'll almost be easier to instantiate those habits while you're young, rather than being 40 and trying to switch your habits like 180, flip them around. That's going to be way more tough than learning them when you're younger, as an adolescent, young adult.
Precisely, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. That old saying they always have, right? And so that's kind of exactly what we're doing here, right? Especially with our group of followers, with whoever decides to listen to us, is we want to build this knowledge base where we can all just grow and grow and grow and grow, planting little seeds everywhere.
I'm excited. Yeah. It's gonna be fun reading all of these books.
Truly. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and crumple up all these little pieces of paper. We got them all written down. I'm gonna take off my hat here, and we're gonna throw in my little hat. Gonna shuffle them up real quick. Right. Mark, why don't you go ahead and pick one? What you got there, Mark?
Hey, Vaynerchuk.
Hey.
Gary.
I think this was rigged. Mark picking his own book.
I know.
What's going on here?
Don't worry, we put a blindfold on and everything. You just couldn't see it. So Gary V it is.
Mr. Gary V.
So how do you feel, Mark? First one up?
I feel excited, and I almost feel like it's the most appropriate one.
Why do you say that?
In the sense that we're starting this brand new adventure, and so, like, getting this podcast off the ground, we're looking at making a Facebook page, making an Instagram, getting on iTunes, getting our podcasts out there, and, like, talking about social media, how people interact with social media, the psychology behind it, why they use it, how they use it, all these things. I feel like it's really applicable to us just trying to, like, birth this podcast from the ground up and really get it to start growing.
True, it's going to give us the knowledge to market ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I'm the only one who's a marketing minor, but I'm just getting into this field.
Totally.
So, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I completely agree.
I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Definitely.
Why don't you put it up on Amazon? See how much it costs. I guess, I don't know, or we could use a different search engine. Or
Yeah.
But Amazon, you mean the book gets here tomorrow, basically.
Yeah, if you want to order it, that's fantastic. You can order it and follow along with our chapters, or you can go ahead and read it.
With our podcast, we're gonna try and give the listeners like a heads up, like, oh, we're gonna read chapters 2 through 4 next week or whatever. So if someone wants to follow us week by week, more than welcome to. That'd be awesome.
More power to you. And if you don't want to buy it and just want to listen to us, and hopefully we'll surmise it accurately, and hopefully be a good summary where you can extract the knowledge as we're reading it, and that's what we're going to try to provide for you guys as listeners.
The going rate right now on Amazon is $18.15 with your Amazon Prime, or you can get it on Kindle for $13.24. So, I mean, under $20 for this book, and it can get to you in 2 days if you got Amazon Prime. I think it's going to be a good one to read. It's a New York Times bestseller, so
sweet.
It definitely has good reviews, and maybe you would like to check out some of his other books as well, as he has multiple bestseller books. And yeah, anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap up this first introduction podcast to Zero and Go?
I'm good. Excited for the journey.
Yeah. Do you guys want to elaborate on the name? Why don't you lay it out for us, August?
Elaborate how? You got me confused.
Why did we choose the name?
Why did we choose the name? I think we were started with Zero to... Well, originally I was advocating for Zero and Go, and then we decided Zero to Infinity was something we were trying to do. Yeah. Decided that Zero and Go was something that we wanted to do because really we are starting out at zero, right? We're all very young, like we were saying. And we kind of want to develop this base. We want to take the book, start at zero, and just let it cascade us into this, I don't know, just this field that we can just kind of rummage through and just bury ourselves in different rabbit holes.
That's a very...
I was painting you a pretty good picture. Right?
He had a good macro picture of that. The whole book is going to take us to one place. But then you also have every chapter is going to take us to one place as well. Yeah. So we're going to multiple places within the book, but then the book is also going to push us forward completely.
And we don't know exactly where it's going to go. We're starting at this point 0, and then we'll just see where it goes.
That's the venture aspect. That's the journey aspect where we don't know where it's going to take us, but we are aiming in a good direction, and hopefully it will take us to some place that we find meaningful and we find enlightening, and hopefully we can share that with you guys along the way as the viewers and listeners.
Love it. Sorry, the English major came out of me.
It's natural for him. Can't blame him.
Truly. But yeah, man.
All right, well, thanks to anyone that tuned in, and there'll be more.
My name's August.
My name's Mark.
And Michael.
And we are Zero and Go. This is episode 1. Hope to catch you next week. Have a good one.